hello everybody, and welcome to another exciting wikiDeeks podcast. This is Diane, and today we have a really special guest, someone whom I've been wanting to sit down and talk with for a very long time. And I'll tell you why in a second, and I don't even think you know Diana, because I want to welcome Diana Valentine to wikideeks.com. And thank you so much for joining us on this interview so your fans can find out more about your work on NCIS and particularly as a director now. So this is a real pleasure.
Yeah.
So, the reason I've wanted to do this interview for a long time is because I actually got a chance to watch you work in one of your roles as on NCIS LA as a script supervisor. I was fortunate enough to go on a site visit about 6 years ago, and I got to watch you guys film a scene in Ops. And at one point we went into that side room, where you and the director, and at the time it was Stephen DePaul, you were watching everything on a screen, and I got to see you guys at work, and I was fascinated by everything that goes on behind the scene, and that's why I'm really excited to be able to ask you some of the questions I've had in my mind since that day on set. So, if you're ready to get started, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay. In case people don't... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just said fire away.
Okay. In case people don't know your work background in the business, you've been a script supervisor for about 117 episodes of NCIS Los Angeles, not to mention so many other iconic shows like Beverly Hills 90210 and the Gilmore Girls and Nip Tuck. Can you tell me or tell us what that role entails?
Well, the script supervisor basically supervises the shooting of the script, and what that means is they make sure the continuity within the episodes are right on. They make sure the continuity within the filming of the episodes is right on. They deal with the lines and the dialogue with the actors, and they make sure the director has all of the coverage he needs or she needs to edit the episode together.
And you did that for a while, so how did that role lead you into directing on the show?
Well, I have been pursuing directing for many years before NCIS Los Angeles. I had done a feature that my husband and I produced. I had done a number of short films that had been in festivals. And the thing that I'd done script supervising just before NCIS Los Angeles was Nip Tuck. And I had just finished directing my first episode of television on Nip Tuck when I went over to interview for NCIS Los Angeles, and I told them up front that that was my end goal, directing. And they were very open to it, and Shane was very receptive. And so all the years of sitting next to directors and seeing their process and seeing, how they dealt with different things, I think was an excellent learning ground.
Well, that leads me into my next question, which is, it seems like the show has done a really good job at encouraging female directors and writers. What kind of environment do you experience on their set compared to some of the others that you've worked on?
I am kind of in a unique situation, having come from a crew position. So, because I know exactly how important everybody's job is on a crew, I tend to have a similar experience across sets that I work on because of that background that I have as a crew person, at least so far. Because I'm so aware of how hard the crew works to help the directors achieve their vision, and I have so much respect for them that it's reciprocated because they know that I know what their life is on a set also, and I think that helps bridge me as a director on sets that I didn't come up on as a script supervisor.
Yeah, that's got to make it a lot easier for you as a director and for the people that are around you.
Yes.
Hmm. Well, the show is known for a lot of its action scenes, obviously, and I was wondering, because a lot of the other shows, I don't know how much action scenes there were, but you developed your skills filming some of the big booms and scenes, and you've had some really great shots. I mean, I love the one, where Callan almost gets flattened by a subway car, and there were some really great car chases rather, and shootouts. So which do you enjoy more? Do you like directing action scenes and stunts, or shooting those, emotional scenes, particularly in the last episode that you did, which was Better Angels? Which one do you like the best?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you know this, but I was a stunt woman before I was a script supervisor.
Oh, no, I didn't.
So I have been around a lot of stunt units and then learned how to place the camera in the positions that they need to make the stunts, work, and collaborating with the stunt coordinator and special effects department. We come up with ideas to make, those stunt scenes as dynamic as possible. I also, though, because I love drama and I love emotion, I love shooting emotional scenes. I love shooting really dramatic scenes. I mean, anytime I'm feeling while I'm sitting behind the monitor watching it or tearing up at those scenes, then I know that I got the scene. I love both of them.
Well, yeah, I guess it's hard to choose, particularly when you've got some great scripts and you want to, decide, how to shoot them. But yeah, I mean, it's got to be an interesting area to decide, how to, film different types of scenes. Talk about because this is wikiDeeks and we want to talk a little bit about some of the episodes that you filmed, particularly that had to do with Denzi. You directed one of the more controversial episodes. I don't know if you knew that with Denzi fans, which was Three Hearts. Where Deeks decides to pull back from Kenzie and their thing, which frustrated Denzi fans incredibly. Plus he opened that first part of the box only to find another box inside. So,
right.
Did anybody ever tell you what was in the box? Because it's always the most frequent question that we get.
No one told me, and I'm not sure that anybody knew exactly what was in it at first also. Because, when you're writing for so many years on a series, sometimes you know what the essence of what should be in the box, but not necessarily the physical. And also you're sending the characters down a road, and you may not be exactly sure where that road's going to end. So you don't want to put anything out there that's going to have to be walked back or revised later, So
Sure.
I think they left it kind of in that ambiguous area so that when they knew where Kinsey and Deke's characters were headed, then the impact of what was finally in that box would have a much more of substance, I think.
Mm-hmm. Is this something that you would have talked to Dave Kalstein about in terms of the motive and everything?
Like I said, I think it was kind of just the essence of what may be in there and not necessarily exactly what it was.
Right. Okay. Well, you directed, one of my favorite, what I consider one of the best Denzi episodes out there, The Better Angels. And, the episode was so incredibly emotional. What was the first thing that you thought about after you read the script?
Well, I think the scene that really kind of hit me the hardest emotionally was the scene where David realizes that even if he didn't accomplish that goal that he originally started him on this journey, which was to get that drive to, to people to make sense of his son's death. The fact that he realized that because he had loved and been loved, and that having experienced somebody who loved you or loving somebody makes your life important. Even if that wasn't necessarily what you thought originally. But I think him being in the position he was in where he was dying, I think you really kind of take stock about what's really important. And, as a mother and a wife, and you realize that those relationships that you form or that you have are more important than anything else. And I think that's why that particular scene really touched me.
And in terms of working on these types of scripts, how did you approach working with the actors? In particular, Eric and Daniela. Is that something that you have to sit down with them ahead of time and work through something like that?
Well, when we're rehearsing those kind of scenes for the first time, there's discussions that, happen about it, and what maybe, I know Danny and I had discussions of where she didn't want to start out so emotional that she didn't have anywhere to go as the episode progressed. So we talked about, maybe pulling back in some scenes and things like that. And with David, his character, I think the change with his character was when, the initial impact of the car and what was going on, and then when he found out that he wasn't going to make it out alive. I think those two different mindsets were what we talked about, and also remembering the physical pain that he was in as well as the emotional pain.
And do you work a lot with the writer, in this case Frank Military? Do you work together a lot before the episode or during the episode? How does that work?
No, we don't work, because we never know who, as a director, you never know who you're getting as a writer until, shortly before you start working. So, Frank and I would work together during the shooting of the script. We talk about emotions and tones. We have a tone meeting before we go over the script, before we start shooting, to what about the scene should be, the tone of the scene should be, and what should be happening emotionally in the scene, so that we're on the same page. And we were, this script especially, Frank and I were really, we felt the same way about the scenes and stuff, so it was wonderful.
We spoke to Eric a lot about Frank Military's writing and how special it is. What's your take on what he brings to the scripts that he's bringing out there for the show?
Frank always has the most interesting scripts. They're, either sometimes they're really dark, sometimes they're really emotional, sometimes they're, they can just be kind of fun and silly. But when I get his scripts, I know it's going to be a challenge because of all the beats and all the layers in his storylines and his script, trying to do justice to all of those beats and the time that you have, and sometimes not as easy as we would like. You just always wish you had a little more time to make it the best it can be.
Sure. We talked a little bit about the guest actor E.S. Eunice, who was wonderful playing David. He was so good. you talked a little bit about working with him. What's your strategy for helping guest actors integrate into the cast and make them comfortable? What do you do as a director?
Well, I mean, on NCIS Los Angeles, I have to do very little because our cast is so welcoming and so they are so kind and considerate with the guest cast, and our guest casts are usually really, really good, and so they just kind of naturally integrate because they're talking about the story and about their the scenes. Like Danny and I has talked a lot about the scenes that they had together, and when you have someone great to work off of, that's just a dream position to be
And
in.
she was so much integral and the star of this episode, I felt. And you talked about how you were working with her to build up to the emotional last scenes. How do you work with her or any of them to stay in the right frame of mind to give you that kind of performance? Anything else that you could bring to that?
Well, when I direct, I always talk to the actors, and I try and shoot close-ups first, especially for those emotional scenes, so that they can give it their all, and they don't have to worry about not having anything less. Like if you do the wider shots first, but if we can't do the close-ups coverage, I always let the actors know that this is a wide shot, so you can hold back, and so that they're not spent by the time you are in the tight shots and you need all of that emotion going on.
Her journey in this episode really is part of a longer one that she's been on. Well, actually, both of them have been on, trying to come to some agreements about what their future is going to look like. And I've often wondered, for directors who have to just come in at any time during the course of the season, do you keep tabs on the storylines when you're not working on the shows, or do you have to just go in and somebody needs, like Frank in this case, would fill you in on what's going on so that you could just walk into the continuing storyline?
Well, the good thing, I mean, the fantastic thing is the shows are really great about giving directors coming in like episodes 3 or 4 before theirs, so that you kind of have what's happened as a lead up. And if there's anything that's happened earlier than that, they talk to you about it in a tone meeting when you're going over scenes. They'll say, in 5 episodes ago, this happened, so this is where this goes. So, you have a conversation about that. But, I'm still a fan of the show, even though I'm not there 24/7, so I watch the show.
So you're quite aware of what's going on, yeah. I want to talk. I want to talk about some of the extraordinary scenes in this episode, like the one where Kenzie's asking Deeks for advice about breaking the news to David that he's going to die. What was it like working with Danielle and Eric on that specific scene? How'd you tackle that with them?
Well, that scene, we actually had a very big discussion about Frank, Danny, and Eric and I, and both Danny and Eric had some concerns, not about what the scene was about, but the wording of the scene. And so, we were all talking about it and figured out a way to adjust the dialogue so that it would work for everyone, and it made the scene better because everybody could emotionally connect to what they're saying,
Was there any improvisation during that time, or did they keep, strictly with the script?
Well, I mean, Eric, we had adjusted some lines, and then Eric, whenever Eric's on camera, he, especially in a scene like that, he's saying the words, but also adding words because just like you do when you're actually talking to someone and you're trying to explain an emotion that you're feeling, and you know what you want to say, but you elaborate on it. So I would say less about improvisation, more elaborating within the scene to make it better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yes, I mean, Eric, I know that you have, I know Eric does improvise a lot of humor scenes too.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that a little bit more as we go on, but the other great scene that I love specifically with Eric is that big shootout at the warehouse. That is a moment where, he's out of ammo and he pulls out his knife to, fend off the bad guys, and the look on his face, it's pretty intense. And I think what I found interesting was I thought this was one of the rare times he didn't use comedy to deflect the seriousness of the situation. I think he really thought he was going to die this time. So how did you and Eric approach filming that moment?
Well, that was a scene that Eric did a lot of improvisation on it as he's shooting and through the shootout, some of it which we kept in there. But I had talked to him and I said, I need a real moment at the end of this. So I let him, just go off and everything. And he's so wonderful. He gave me that moment at the end and I loved it. It was perfect. I went up and told him, I said, that was it. That was perfect. So you can have some of the comedy, but and I told him, I said, at this point, you need to believe that you're not going to make it out of here,
Right, exactly, because that's the exact look on his face, that he wasn't sure if he was definitely going to make it, so it was a great scene. Another great scene, another beautiful scene is that final one with Kenzie and Deeks. It was just the way it was shot, the sun was setting, the twilight was descending. It was such a sad shot, but so, romantic too in a way. How did you decide to shoot that scene? What was in your head in terms of giving it the look that, we were able to see in the finished copy?
Well, I knew that I wanted to be able to incorporate what was going on with David also within the scene between Kinsey and Deeks, because I think that David's realization about how much loving someone and being loved by someone, how important that was, is what helps propel Kinsey to the realization that love is all that really matters, that you're on this earth for a finite amount of time, and spend it loving someone and being loved. I mean, that's what's important. And so I wanted to be able to tie Eric and Danny and Ayos into the same shot, so I knew I was going to come up so I could see what was going on with David in the background at the very end and seeing what was going on with Danny and Eric in the foreground.
Yeah, that was wonderful to watch. That was a great scene. Because we are wikiDeeks, I wanted to ask you about working with Eric Christian Olsen and Danielle Arua. We talked about how he's known for his frequent improvisations. Outside those scenes, how do you handle that as a director? Do you enjoy it? Is it hard to keep things on track, or is it just a fun way of keeping things creative?
I enjoy it. I think Eric has a great sense of humor, and sometimes, he may go a little too far for, which can clutter a scene, but he's so, great about, when you mention it to him, say, look, I think that this is one beat too far. I think that, all of this is great, but this dilutes what the scene should be. And also when he's ad-libbing, he knows editing well enough to know to leave space so that if you don't like it, you can cut it out,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead. Now, well, in terms of Denzi, what do you think makes their dynamic so special? What do you see about these two actors working together that has translated into something that has really become so beloved by the fans? I mean, I think everybody's going crazy about the wedding coming up very shortly. Um, After 9 years, what's your take on them working together um, as a couple?
Well, I think they're in a unique position of they are, such close friends in real life that, that brings such a realism and a natural relationship to their characters because they have that built because it's in their day-to-day lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really enhances their comedy together because they play off each other all the time.
Yeah, I bet. So it must be fun though to work with them as a director and be able to work through some of the scenes with them. I would imagine.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I always love when
go ahead.
I always love when I have Disney scenes.
Yeah. Well, we always do too. So that's the whole reason behind this website, I guess. So what do you have coming up? You just got done working on an episode of NCIS. So how different is it working on that set as compared to NCIS LA?
Well, that show's been around for a long time, also. So it's a very family. I mean, there are people who kids started out young and now maybe working in some capacity on the show. I mean, any of these long running shows, it definitely always feels like a family with their own set of dysfunctions, their own set of loveliness, and I had a great time over there. And in fact, I start prepping another episode of Criminal Minds next week, and then I go from Criminal Minds to do another episode of NCIS. They were so lovely, and everybody got along with me. I mean, I got along with everybody. Everybody liked me, so they gave me another episode to direct this season, which I'm so excited about.
That is great. Well, what about NCIS LA? Will we see you back in the director's chair before the end of the season?
As of right now, I'm not slated for another one.
Oh, okay.
But things change. Directors fall out because of other things that happen. So who knows?
Sure.
It would be lovely.
Yeah, and then of course, hopefully, there's always next season because.
There's always next season, yeah.
Right. Because we know the show's in good hands when we see your name listed in the credits. So we hope that you do come back because we always love seeing you, working on the show there. So, well, I think that's all of our questions. I want to thank you for joining us for this podcast and sitting down and speaking with us today. It's been a real treat, Diana. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I know our fans are very passionate about the show. I love interacting with them on Twitter and different social media. So I'm glad. I mean, this makes me happy.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, until we see you the next time, I want to thank everybody out there for joining us. This is Diane from wikiDeeks.com. Thanks for listening and take care.